Hello again, everyone, and welcome to The Crusher. I'm your host, Josh Brewster, with Susan Olson. Susan, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm just fine. Well, here we are, and it's funny. We meet once a week for our show, and it seems like every week there's a whole lot that happens. In the since the last time we spoke, and so since the last time we spoke, we thought maybe it was going to be Josh Shapiro as vice presidential pick for uh, her wonderfulness, Kamala Harris. And it turns out that it is Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota.
Surprise, surprise. We couldn't script this any more wacky. But I can't figure out if it's a sitcom or a tragedy. Well, actually, I'm taking it more as a tragedy, but
Well,
it does get wacky.
yes, it does. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, this is a very far left ticket, and there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, she's not talking to the press. She's going to do the whole Joe Biden, I'm sitting in the basement routine. But here comes Tim Walz, and he's got a lot of issues. There's issues of stolen valor, uh, and there's also issues of how far to the left is this guy. So why don't you tell me your take on Tim Walz? Because there's certainly a number of things to talk about.
Well, I have to admit, and I try to sort of go easy on this because I'm very mindful that we're gaining a viewership, but that there's a relationship here with the people that we're talking to, and it's kind of like an educational thing. And I don't want to be arrogant. Go, this is my way, um, and I also don't want too much truth at once. It's kind of like if your baby has too much to eat, they'll just spit it up. They can't take it. You got to kind of go slow and burp them, and
Oh,
so
let's burp the baby. Let's burp the baby, Susan.
well, yeah, and
What we
nurture, and pet the little bum bum, and because well, my Venus is in Cancer. I used to do astrological charts, so everything's sort of motherly in me. But being that I am a counter jihadist, and that's what got me into politics, after studying hammers for a while, everything looks like a nail. So I am somewhat guilty of that, but this is for reals. This is the truly um, Islamunistic ticket, because Tim's ties to Islam are very concrete and very real. But if you really look at things, you'll find that most people that are far to the left do have ties with Islam. And so naturally, and that would include Kamala, and naturally, she cannot have a Jew on the ticket.
Yeah, that was where the week began. Was that he was not going to have Josh Shapiro. Disappointingly, now Josh Shapiro had penned an op-ed or something where he said, I served as a reservist in the like as a volunteer reservist. Israel depends on a lot of non-Israelis to come in and help fight. I think it's a noble thing to do. But he mentioned that I guess he had written something years ago where he didn't believe there could be a two-state solution, or that that the Palestinians didn't want a two-state solution, which to me is like saying that the sky is blue, because we've only rejected the two-state solution like 4 or 5 times. So I don't
Yeah.
understand why this is offensive. They don't want. It's always backflips for Palestine. It's
Oh,
always
yeah.
the exact top. Oh, Israel doesn't want a two-state solution. Well, who the hell has been turning it down? It's been them turning it down. But okay,
Right.
so to get back to Shapiro, Shapiro is not the choice, and a lot of people think. And he, by the way, he apologized for having written this, and it's true. I mean, this is a guy who I can't stand. He says he thinks Netanyahu's a terrible leader. He's very
Right.
down on Netanyahu. I think he's stabbing Israel in the back, but it's not good enough that a Jewish guy is stabbing Israel and Netanyahu in the back. He apologizes for having blurted out the truth, which the truth is that the Palestinians don't want a two-state solution. So, okay, so he's out, but why don't you take it from here? Because people are saying, well, she kowtowed to the Hamas crowd in the Democratic Party. and it's a pretty substantial crowd.
Well, it is. And it's more substantial, I believe, than most people realize. I think it's an essential ingredient to the far left. And the Minnesota is basically ground zero for the Islamic invasion. Um, Obama made sure that, everybody got placed all over the country. And I think that's very strategic. And, I don't believe that the Democrats want Sharia, but I also, as I've said, I don't believe that they know what they're dealing with. They think that these people will just be helpful and help create the chaos and the fear that they want, so that, in every far left or any totalitarian takeover, you've got to go after the free nation with fear. And you pit them against each other. I mean, it's just there's like a whole handbook for everything that's being done to us is exactly what you do when you want to take over. And be aware that food shortages are almost always part of the plan. So please get your dry goods and your water so that you can be prepared. Um, so I mean, the infiltration is tremendous. This guy hasn't hidden it at all, Tim Walz. And he has ties with ISIS. He's attended meetings for CARE, which really isn't a
It's a
Hamas
Hamas
front
front.
group.
It's a Hamas
Yeah,
front.
absolutely. And of course, there is, that little thing called the Muslim Brotherhood, which, they dress in nice suits, they look good, and perfectly respectable, presentable. And this is the real infiltration.
Those are their organizations, and he's also like he got this photograph. I'll put up this photograph with Ilhan Omar, and people say, well, he has to support Ilhan Omar because she's a Democrat too, and he really doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
If someone was a blatant racist on the Republican side and somehow got himself elected, I guarantee you no Republican would go near him. And by the way, some have suggested I should post these too, is the changing of the Minnesota state flag because it was too deeply offensive. They changed their flag, and now their flag sort of resembles the flag of Somalia. And so we'll put that up as well. But so Tim Walz, it's interesting. I've been reading some Jewish response saying, well, he wanted to get evidently as a master's in genocide studies, and he wanted to get
He knows how to do them better.
Holocaust. He wanted Holocaust education in the schools. So a lot of Jews are saying, "Oh no, he's a good guy" and stuff. And I'm not buying it. But let's talk for a moment here about the BLM riots of the summer of 2020. And he sat there and did nothing and let his city burn.
And even his daughter posted on social media telling people, hey, don't worry. Dad's not going to call the National Guard.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. You'll find some brick. Well, no, she didn't tell people where the bricks were laid, but
Yeah, and as Kamala Harris said about those riots at the time, they will not stop, nor should they stop. They should continue. They will not stop. They'll go right up to Election Day. And, he's an interesting guy. He also had a COVID snitch line that if you saw your neighbor walking around without a mask, you could call and report your neighbor. Wow, there's a World War II echo there for you.
Exactly. And they talk about dictators and they talk about Nazis and they try to say that Trump is like Hitler. I'm sorry, that's the most Hitler-esque thing, to have a hotline so you can snitch on your neighbors. People, please understand. You're being told that the bad guy is that orange man, and he's the one that's trying to save you from the real bad guys.
Tampons in the boys' locker bathrooms. Tampons in the boys' bed. What
what is the purpose of that, though?
Cultural Marxism.
Believe me, it's nefarious. It is cultural Marxism. It is to erode the relationship between kids and their parents. Now, look, he's in favor of kids getting medical treatments that are not reversible and getting them without their parents knowing or against their parents' wishes.
It's interesting. We talked about, oh my God, don't remember we did an episode, Beware the Snake. about Gavin Newsom, and I'm like, my God, this
They're
guy is
twins.
this guy
They
is
are
over
twins.
twin.
They're two peas in
My
a pod, or
God,
they're two
Gavin Newsom.
rocks in a shoe.
Oh, it's horrible. So, and it's interesting. So, now the question now is, aside from all the other questions, the media, they are, this is Pravda. They're just doing everything they can that, Kamala, oh, she was against fracking. She's not against fracking anymore. Oh, no, no, no. She doesn't want an arms embargo against Israel, even though she met with them and said she was open to that not even 24 hours before that. And everything you know about Kamala is the exact opposite. And she doesn't want all these things. And, it's interesting there. And Tim Walz, he's a folksy guy. He's your kind of guy. He's a
He's more of
regular guy.
the road.
Regular guy. And she's not taking any interviews, and he's just wonderful. And they're just covering for them every single day. And I think of the sheep living in this country going, oh, that's really nice. This is a far left shit show.
It is, and I was feeling very black pilled, because I'm like, okay, it's on. This is to me, it's so obvious what they're doing,
Yeah.
and then just watching, and the same media that was going, they can't put Kamala up. I mean, she's too unpopular, and then boom. She's the one. Oh, okay.
Well,
She's the second coming. And they're never going to ask her any questions until she's ready, which won't be until she's earned enough money. So notice there are no
not only
policies
that, but,
being
but
revealed.
Susan, not only that, but I mean, there's a couple things. She's gonna try to avoid the press up until election day. Yesterday we had Trump for over an hour taking questions from a lot of press that some of them they're not friendly to Trump. He stood there,
None of them are friendly.
stood there, took the questions, and he says, I'm agreeing right now to 3 debates. And he threw it back on her. And she said, oh, maybe we'll have one. Today she came out, I think it was today or yesterday, she came out and says, oh, yes. Someone confronted her. And she says, I'd like to sit for an interview by the end of the month. It's the 9th of August. And she's saying she wants to sit for an interview at the end of the month. And early voting begins in parts of this country in early September. So,
Yeah.
and it's also this thing with not debating until after like a month worth of voting or something. This is such bullshit, and I don't know how are they going to get away with it. Trump is going to have great ads and do appearances. He should go knock on CNN's door a few times a week and say, hi, I'm here to be interviewed now, and sit down with the most hostile interviewers and just let her rip, because she's going to try to hide this whole 12 weeks.
Yeah, and that's why I want the debate, but I also I'm not going to be foolish and think, well, he's going to wipe the floor with her. No, because the press will be on her side. They'll say that he's being a bully to her. In fact, they're already saying that because he's challenging her to something that isn't her strong point. Oh, you mean talking? Yeah, you're right. Or discussing her policies? No, that's not her strong point.
Yeah, no, not at all. And it's really amazing what they're trying to get away with here. But the calculation that she is this, she's a she and she's not white, and she's 19 years younger than Donald Trump, and that has breathed new life into all this. And soon they're going to have a convention, and that'll bump them another 4 or 5 points up in the polls, because they'll get everybody pumped up with their message.
You think?
Yeah, and you know what? The center, I said for a long time, the center is not that enamored with Donald Trump. He's got to stick to the facts, and just the facts. He's got to stop with the insults and all the bullshit and the Donald Trump show. You don't need any more Trump rallies. You need Trump ads with facts. You need Trump to reach out to people who hate him and just say, here are the facts. We had 11 million undocumented. Now we got another 10 million undocumented. The inflation is here. Iran, blah, blah, blah. Fact, 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 fact. Not Willie Brown. Not she's an idiot.
Right.
Not she's a cackling fool. He's got to be just serious facts.
I couldn't agree more. And
somebody
no
better
more
get a leash
insults.
on him. Somebody better get a leash on him. Susan,
Well,
you
that's
talked
why I
about
was
being
thinking we need another CNN debate because this guy has to be disciplined. I mean, he has to be corralled like CNN did and turn off the microphone and all that stuff. I do have faith. I know that when he is actually working at being the president, because he did do it for 4 years and things were a lot better, he does well. It's just the things that fly out of his mouth.
yeah, no, I know. He did a good job at the presser yesterday. And
Yeah, I did not see that. I've got to
yeah,
catch up.
I thought he played it pretty straight. So I don't know. All I can say is I pray that somebody is telling him to play it straight and cut the bullshit because she is going to win this thing, and she is a far
But
left freak job. There's no
and
doubt.
she'll win it based on nothing because the people voting are skin deep. They care about skin color and
That's right.
genitalia, and that is all.
That's it.
And they'll
Yeah, no,
vote for
that's it.
their own demise.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and we look. There's a lot of the country that thinks about inflation and the open border and stuff, but a lot of people they just want to be romanced. They just want to be romanced, man. They just want to. Oh, she's good looking and she's
And they
not
want to feel
white.
positive. Look, there's so many people. I have a very dear like family member who says, I've been reading my fairy tale books so much lately. I'm like, what? She says, yeah, because just the reality is so awful. I want to escape. Okay, well, you know what? Escaping is not going to save you, and you need to look at what's going on and what these people are doing. Look, she looks nice. She wears a nice pantsuit, and he looks like a folksy guy. And it doesn't matter that they're actually communists,
No,
really.
swear I would find about 600 different locales, and I'll say it again. I would pull a Martha's Vineyard. I would pull a DeSantis Martha's Vineyard on communities across America. Monday morning, it would all go down, and I would say, "Here you go. Here's your open border. It's not an abstraction right in front of your face." Let me just tell you that in 2018, uh, Kamala Harris asked Ronald Vitello, whom President Trump had nominated to head the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, if he believed that the public's perception of ICE was creating fear and distrust in a manner similar to how the KKK had
Yeah,
done in the 20th century. So she compares ICE to the KKK.
yeah,
She also said in her 2016 Senate campaign, she's going to fight for the comprehensive immigration reform that creates a fair pathway to citizenship for America's 11 million undocumented immigrants. Now, remember, this was, folks, this was 11 million, she says, in 2016.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Now add the 10 that we just had, and then add another 10 or 15 that she's going
yeah.
to let in.
You know,
It's the open border. And
yeah,
yeah,
and there's so many people that go, I don't care about the border. Well,
I know.
okay, bring it home. If somebody took the locks off of your doors, I know a girl, her son's just like, oh, please stop about the border. Well, he would feel differently if somebody came and moved into his bedroom and took all his stuff and started, well, he can't play his records showing
No,
how old I am. Um,
it's it's insane. It's completely insane. So anyway, we have Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, who this
yeah,
week said that amongst all kinds of other insane things he said he questioned whether there could be a transition of power if Trump were to take office, and he said it would be unacceptable. We have to stop the rampaging Trump mobs. And that we should prepare for a civil war situation, and that we can't we'd have to invoke the 14th Amendment and say that we can't have an insurrectionist. And it's so irresponsible what he's saying. He's suggesting that we shouldn't have a peaceful transfer of power. Um, I mean, this is really
this
bad.
is this
Like
is this is the brown shirts.
He's telling Antifa to take to the streets.
Yeah, yeah.
He's telling BLM, Antifa, and all the crazies to take to the streets, and he's saying that we should
And
stand up.
remember, BLM doesn't give a rat's ass about Black lives and never did. It's a Maoist organization. It is going for communism. It doesn't care at all about Black lives. They just want a race war.
Yep. And so we're asking
And
people,
it's nonsense. I mean, I wish people could see what happened to these people that took selfies at the Capitol, that are languishing in prison in American gulags. This is the real threat to democracy that
unarmed,
Biden brought on.
unarmed, unarmed,
Unarmed. You cannot
unarmed.
have an unarmed insurrection. There's
Listen,
no such thing.
look, yeah. He's so Raskin saying prepare for violence in a difficult transition. We should stop the transition. Let me tell you. Look, Susan, there's this sentencing thing coming up for these flippin' insane conviction of Trump on this misdemeanor that was past the statute of
Yeah.
limitations that evidently became 34 felonies, and people just go along with this. Okay,
Yes.
which
Not
scares
realizing,
me.
hey, that could happen to you.
It scares me. Yeah, but here's the thing: all the legal experts say, well, I mean, there's a process, and they're right. There's a process. There's also an appeals process and all this. But in my heart of hearts, I look at these people and I'm like, if you're willing to go through this and put up these kangaroo courts and go through with it, okay,
Hmm.
um, don't tell me that just because nobody has been ever sentenced to jail over something like this, I'm telling you, Susan, when they have an opportunity to put him in jail, they're going to do it.
Look, they have taken
They're going
ordinary
they're
citizens
going to
and
do it.
made them political prisoners. This country was designed to never have political prisoners. And I remember when Obama put the legislation in place to allow this and thinking, oh, there goes a red flag, the domestic terrorism. If you're suspected of being a domestic terrorist, bye bye. They can throw all your rights out the window
Yeah,
and detain you.
yeah,
And that's what's
yeah.
happening.
Yeah, and look how Biden characterized people showing up at their kids at the school board meetings, because after COVID we got a glimpse in the classroom and people said, yeah, what you're teaching my kid is patently crazy. Why are you doing this? They're their schools, they're our schools, and they're hauling them off. The cops are arresting them. Biden is saying that these people are terrorists. They're a threat to everybody's a threat to democracy. Um,
He
so
stood up at the podium with that red background, which made
what
him look like
what
Hitler.
about but what about Harris? Like working, supporting the idea of bailing out these people who were tearing up Minnesota. By the way, in Minneapolis, they're setting federal buildings on fire. They're
Hmm.
in places like
With
Seattle.
people inside them.
Well, people inside them taking over police stations in Seattle, and boy, I mean, and you're
And
not,
they're the good
and they're
guys.
the good guys. And
Yeah, but those
now,
people taking selfies at the Capitol.
and by the way, I don't even care, Susan, honestly, if you were to charge everybody who walked into the Capitol, okay, even if you did, even though they let the doors open, but if you charge them all with disturbing the peace and trespassing and all this, these are minor offenses,
Right.
okay? They're my, they're not, and I thought it was a horrible thing to do. I think it's a stupid thing to do. I don't like the storming of the gates. I think it's bullshit. I think it's all bullshit. But boy, when you sink them in prisons and now they're going to get these long jail sentences, and but the tearing up of our cities in the summer of 2020,
Yeah.
these are the good
Yeah.
guys. These are the
Oh,
good guys.
they're fine. They're fine. And Ray Epps, where's he at? He's not facing any jail time. And he was the one out
Remind the
there
audience
telling
who
people,
remind the audience who Ray Epps is. I remember
okay, he was one of many.
he was acting like he was MAGA, right? Is that
Yes,
and he was
wearing a red hat
right.
and really there to instigate, because I absolutely believe that 90 to 99% of anybody who committed any violence on January 6th was there as a plant to create chaos, to egg the other people on, and to make Trump supporters look bad. Look, if they really wanted an insurrection, the people on the right are the ones that are armed. Nobody brought weapons.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what, even if we don't have evidence of this, I would agree with you that this street theater is entirely in the playbook of
Yes.
the neo-Marxist stuff. But Ray Epps specifically was
Well, he was out there telling people the day before on the 5th. He said, "We're going to go in the Capitol. We're going to go in there. We're going to make our voices heard." and either on the 5th or the 6th, there's footage of him with a bunch of MAGA people who are going, you're fed, you're fed, you're setting us up, no, and shouting at him, fed, fed, fed. My best friend was there, and she said that it just didn't smell right. She was at the rally, and she did not go to the Capitol, and yet within a week, the FBI was at her door because her phone pinged at the rally.
Yep.
Never set foot in the Capitol.
No, this is insidious stuff, and again, those George Floyd riots, people were injured, people were killed, property was destroyed, and you're about to elect the woman who said they should not stop. Nancy Pelosi also said they should not stop. I mean,
well, and if Black Lives Matter, why don't Black livelihoods? It was Black businesses that were
in many
burned to the
cases it
ground. It was
was.
Black people that were killed.
But these are facts, and we're operating on vibes. We're operating on feelings and resentments, and we've talked about it. I think we're past equality. I don't think we can handle it. I think it was a lovely dream that Martin Luther King had. We are completely unable to handle it. We can't handle it at all. I'm sorry. I think we're a bunch of Neanderfucks, quite honestly. I really do. I'm very scared of humans because I think we're just too fucking Neanderthal to handle.
I don't know. I think that we're kind of bad animals, but that there is a lot of Neanderthal, but there's a great deal of good and godliness, and I think that we are capable of living in peace and harmony. It's the political factions that prevent that.
Yeah, actually,
this was we were doing fine, and everybody voted for Obama because they wanted to seal the deal and say, look, okay. I cried tears of joy when he was elected because I thought, dang it, every Black child can go to school tomorrow and sit just a little taller because anything's possible now. That's really why we all voted for him, to be honest.
Well,
and he's the one that turned it around and started race baiting.
Well, look,
it's been the politicians. It's not been the people so much, but we are more tribal than we admit. We're not supposed to all live together.
Although the fact of the matter is, I can worry. You're right. I can worry about the politics all I want, but the fact of the matter is, we live in this a big, diverse city here, and people aren't at each other's throats. I mean, sometimes you see things happen like blocking people from going to the synagogue when there's a big conflagration. But in general, blacks, whites, Arabs, Jews, Asians, they're living together. They're not committing violence against each other. But politically, we're in deep identity politics, and that is very much a sign that the left has taken hold. So we had an interesting occurrence this week. Recently, Jamal Bowman was lost his primary, thank God, and this week Cori Bush lost her primary, thank God. So I think it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Tribute to Stupidity.
Tribute to Stupidity. Yay!
My tribute to stupidity this week is none other than Cori Bush. Cori Bush, she was opposed by another African-American who was receiving heavy support from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. As you know, she's a noted anti-Semite on the Squad. She hates Israel. She hates America. She's from the Squad. The Squad loves her. Cori Bush, good riddance, at least for now. And I'd like to reiterate that you can bitch about AIPAC all you want, but I'm just going to ask everybody in the world a simple question. If Jews do not stand up against anti-Semitism, who the hell will? Who the hell will? Al Sharpton? Elizabeth Warren? Rachel Maddow? Who's going to stand up to the anti-Semitism if the Jews don't stand up? So Cori Bush, you wanted to get into politics, and now they leveled their sights at you, and they heavily supported your opponent, thank God. And I will say this, if you want to get racial about this, let me say this. I would trust Byron Donalds or Tim Scott with the fate of Israel in 1 second before I would trust Democrats, my fellow tribesmen, Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler, any of these people. I could name a whole bunch of African Americans who I would gladly put the fate of the Jewish people in their hands before I would trust almost any Jewish Democrat. Sorry if you don't like it. Screw you, Cori Bush. And that is my tribute to stupidity. So there you go. And there you have it.
I agree.
Thank you. Studio audience loves it.
Are you frozen? Oh, you want mine?
Sure.
Oh, well, I'm going to double down on that, but I would include all of the Squalid.
Squalid.
Yes. One down, at least 3 more to go. And Ilhan, there's grounds. I mean, she should be fired and charged with sedition. She has pledged her fealty to Somalia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but political Islam is completely against liberty. Completely. And if you are going to be in support of that, and I think, no, it's not a religion. It's not somebody's choice. It's not racist to say that an ideology that believes in killing everybody that disagrees is a bad thing. And we also don't like having our women raped. Gee, that's so hateful of me to say.
Well,
but these are the facts, and this is what you're really dealing with, and people need to grasp that because they're in for a rude awakening. And like I say, I don't want to bludgeon people. I want to burp the baby, but you're being fed poison, and you need to know what's going on.
Very good. I agree 100%. Susan, let's wrap up today with this. I want to completely shift gears because I've been something I wanted to talk to you for a while about. Your radio show used to follow the great Howard Stern's show.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I was such a freak for Howard Stern that I used to tape his shows. I loved Howard. And I always wanted to talk to you about this because I got to tell you, one of the great disappointments in showbiz history, as far as I'm concerned, is his transformation. And people are stunned by this. I hear people all over, Joe Rogan and everybody talking about this everywhere. Now, let me say this, Susan, before you respond. I understand if a man wants to go to therapy 3 times a week because he can afford it and he wants to have his head examined. But, there's something, Howard now, you could always depend on Howard to be truthful. He never was like with just one party or the other. And now he's like Stephen Colbert.
Oh,
like
God.
he's just a shill for the Democratic Party. He announces that he's woke. Then he talks like he doesn't even know what it means. To me, it's you're so far left, you're not even a liberal anymore. So, but
He's Rob Reiner.
He's not funny anymore. What the hell happened to him? And I understand if you want to change your act, but at the same time, he's got this younger wife now for the last 25 years. And I think that like he's not, it's like he wants to be hip to the younger generation's friends or something. He sucks. And I worshipped him. One of the reasons I'm talking into a microphone right now, one of the reasons I was on the air, even in the National Hockey League, I worshipped him. And Howard, you suck. That's all.
You and I have that in common. And, I'd left acting, really didn't care about it. And then I think it was when the first Brady Bunch movie came out that I started, maybe a little before that, I started doing radio programs. And I was like, I like being myself in a public arena. Because I think a lot of, my history is being a child playing another person and kind of being like, no, I want to be me. Because I'd have to go to school and get teased for all the. And Cindy wasn't that stupid. I understand. I have love for her now. But as a child, I used to get teased a lot. But anyway, so that like radio was like, gosh, this is something I really like. And then Howard came to Los Angeles, and he wasn't very kind to Mark and Brian, who at that time were the people that I loved.
He held a funeral.
And I still loved them.
Held a funeral for them, like in '92.
Yes, he did. And they sang So Crappy Together.
Yeah.
Howard created the first show about nothing, kind of a Seinfeld thing, but always was true to what he believed. And the thing I loved the most about him was his politics. And I absolutely adored Howard. And I started to appreciate the fact that I had been on his show many times without, until he came to LA, I really didn't get it. And then I got it. And then I got to go do a show again. And it was because I was on that show that I got the call from KLSX when they were switching to talk. And I got my first job in radio, was in the second highest, biggest market in the country, Los Angeles. Me and my partner Ken Over got to break the O.J. Simpson verdict to LA. So, I mean, that was wonderful. It was a great experience. We never knew how long Howard was going to go. We had to follow him. So the shortest show we had was a half hour, and the longest show we had was 5 hours. You couldn't predict Howard, and I absolutely adored him. Didn't appreciate how when he'd have other Brady's or people on the show, he always conveniently forgot that he knew me. But I'd see him in person, and he's like, I adored him. And when we were doing the HGTV show, we did some publicity for Sirius. And as compensation, we all got a year of free Sirius. So I had Sirius radio, and I hadn't heard Howard since he left terrestrial radio. I'm like, oh, great, I can hear Howard again. I turn it on, and the first thing I hear is basically Howard Stern giving Hillary Clinton a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
He was kissing her ass so deeply. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happened to him? And then COVID. And
then COVID. And then he's a germaphobe, but he flipped out. He doesn't even have, he doesn't have Adam Carolla on anymore.
No, and Adam wouldn't want to do a show. Adam's like, what the heck happened to him?
I'd love to get it.
Maybe it's catching, maybe it's contagious. You're the dude with the virus.
And he's this germaphobe, but I tell you, it's just so disappointing because I remember there were times when, he would have Senator Alphonse D'Amato on, the old New York Republican, and he thought he would talk about how much he liked Reagan and he was really he always called himself like a social libertarian and an economic conservative.
Yes.
And if you don't want to do so much over the top stuff, like you don't want to spank chicks on the air anymore, that's fine. I don't care. But
it was time for him to put that to rest.
Yeah, it's true. But you've become this douchebag, and like if I turn on Stephen Colbert, I'm getting the same crap that would come out of your mouth, and then look. It's so disappointing, and he's.
Well, it almost makes me. Kimmel has also gone down the dark side. Yeah, I was going to give him 4 when I saw him at the Emmys, and I got
how is that? It's interesting, Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel are still very, very close friends.
Yes, they are.
But they really must set a lot aside because Adam Carolla has some pretty conservative views. And God knows I love Adam.
Very wise views. I love Adam.
I'd love to get him in here.
I'm inclined, even though I don't believe in this sort of thing, but I am kind of inclined to think that perhaps people actually do sell their souls to Hollywood.
Howard had made Howard had already made like $700 million or something what happened, man? You used to be like, you talk about how much you love the cops. You talk about how much you love, you support Israel, but you were never easy to pin down in the political realm. And
It's
now it's
brilliant.
just this. Now it's like I'm turning on the freaking Rachel Maddow show. I haven't listened to Howard in a few
No
years now because
soul.
I just want to.
No soul.
I just want to
It's
vomit.
bye-bye.
But he didn't
Yeah,
need the
but
money.
because
He
there
didn't
is
need
no
any
soul, there's
money.
no integrity, there's no heart,
He
there's
didn't
no
need any
depth.
money, Susan.
It's
Susan,
not
he didn't
money.
need money.
I think he wanted to. I, frankly, I kind of blame the second wife. I think, it's always been about getting laid for Howard. It's always been about being popular, being in with the in crowd. This is the guy that got beat up every day in high school.
Sexual repression was part of the engine of his show. And being married while these women were throwing themselves at him, but he was monogamous to
Yeah,
Beth Stern. And
yeah.
now he's got this younger wife, and she was a model, and God knows whatever the hell else she was. And he wants to be hip to the youngsters. I don't think he's hip at all.
And to Hollywood, too. He got on TV. He's doing whatever that talent show is, which I
Yeah.
don't watch.
So
It's
anyway,
Hollywood.
he should have
It's
retired.
Hollywood. I swear it's a coven.
The coven. All right, Howard, we're sorry to see you go, but you know what? You went a long time ago. It's been a long time. It's been a
Oh, yeah,
long
yeah.
time. Long time. So, well, there you go.
And
All
I
right.
don't want to disparage his wife either, because I understand she's involved in animal rescue. I'd probably
I'm
like her.
sure she's
But,
fine. I'm sure
you
she's
know,
fine. I just,
yeah, I mean, he's lost his soul. He's
come
lost
on, man.
he's lost anything that was interesting about him.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's too bad. All right. Well, listen, on that depressing note, uh,
So
oh my God, Howard.
I hope we end up having good news. It was my best friend's birthday today, and we got on the phone with each other and talked for 3 hours, and she's still optimistic. And she and I are the same politically. And she's like, no, Susan, don't fret. It isn't over yet.
Good.
And not everybody is stupid. We've got all the
That's
heartland. We've
right.
got people that have common sense.
No, you know what? I tell your friend, thank you. I needed to hear that today because I go down the rabbit hole too quickly. Like it's
And I did too, because a very good friend of mine black pilled me and said, no, Kamala's going to win. I'm like, nah. But Andrea, my birthday girl, thank you so much. She said, don't be negative, don't be black pilled. We're going to fight and we're going to win.
very good. All right, Susan. We will talk to you next time on the Crusher. Love you. And
love you. Mwah.
bye-bye.